Actually 8 o'clock where we are this morning, a few minutes after 8 o'clock, 9 after 8 on this 17th day of December. Just getting all the ducks in a row, I's crossed and T's dotted, things like that. I did that intentionally because I know you're looking at me. Okay, fine. I's dotted and T's crossed.
Okay, good.
Are you happy?
Delighted.
Fantastic. Into the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning, and our conversations continue. But let me tell you where to go. You're looking for a place to go where it's going to light you up for the Christmas season. It is Sarit Your City. This Christmas, Sarit Your City is the ultimate festive destination. So it started all the way from the 28th of November. It's going to go through to the 15th of January. Step into a magical world of dazzling decor. You can meet Santa Claus. He does exist, Dennis, no matter what you say. You can also meet the Grinch for people who don't believe in Christmas. That guy will tell you Santa doesn't, even though they're on the same floor. And Rudolph, the reindeer, not the dog, spreading cheer from the 1st until the 25th of December. And you can enjoy live choir performances every weekend until December 22nd. So you want to head on down to Sarit Your City, also where Sarit Your City will be hosting Africa's first ever Light the World giving machines. So you can actually contribute essentials like farm produce, farm animals, food and clothing to bring to those in need. You can maximize your experience with the Sarit's loyalty app and earn and redeem points. You can pay for parking, you can transfer those points, and you can send digital gift vouchers to your loved ones with ease. There is the Masai Market every Wednesday and Thursday, and the Sarit Kids Corner every weekend. Remember, on the 18th, our very own Edward Quatch on the Spice Drive will be live on ground at Sarit Your City, bringing the festive vibe straight to you. You can get all your details at www.sarityourcity.com. So that's what you can do this festive period. Time keeps going, so get on down to Sarit Your City and enjoy all the festivities this season. And if you decide to fly, CT's got the tea on who you should fly with.
Well, if you're a bird, you don't need to listen to what I'm saying. But if you're not, you actually want to fly, you want to leave the country, not necessarily for holidays, but any other time when something needs to take care of the country, this is what I want you to consider. How do you really want to fly? Do you want your journey to begin at the airport, or do you want it to begin before you get to the airport? Well, Emirates business class tells you that your journey begins before you get to the airport. You will have limousine service to take you to the airport. Once you're through with all the check-ins and all the stuff that happens with your luggage, you actually get to board the plane. Now that's where the fun begins. Because you are then introduced to a whole new world of exceptional treatment and exceptional flying. Whether it is what you want to eat, whether it is how you want to rest, whether it is where you want to work and how you want to work, and how you want to be entertained. Everything will be at your disposal, and it will be the best that money can afford. Whether it is the drink you will have, whether it is the meal you will have, whether it is the rest you will have. Why do I include rest? No reclining of the seat here. That seat can be flattened into a bed. And to make you sleep sound, you will have pajamas. Yes, those things you wear when you want to sleep. And there'll be a duvet to cover yourself with. Now, I need to repeat this. Pajama you keep, duvet you leave where you found it. Yes, no packing the duvet, okay? Emirates business class treats you like the special person that you are. And when you arrive at your destination, again, the same service, limousine to your destination. Not only will you have rested, you'll have been well fed, and you will have been well entertained, and you'll be all rounded.
There you go. Flying this season, fly with Emirates business class. Okay, so you know what? Our guest this hour is Dr. Dominic Menjo. He is the Food Security Advisor in the Executive Office of the President. He's our guest this hour. And I think that Dennis is going to tell you something about one area where you're definitely involved. I mean, clearly, is agriculture. And the KCB Foundation is essentially making sure that young people who are looking to really be involved in this sector and what the KCB Foundation is doing with them and how that can be involving for them.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Now, KCB has recognized the fact that over 1 million young people enter into the labor market annually, and with the unemployment that exists in the country. KCB Foundation, through the Tujiajiri program, is telling these young people aged between the ages of 18 to 34 that we are coming here to make sure that we give you the skill, because they recognize that majority of these young people leave school but have not entered into colleges or gotten into the labor market with the skills that they deserve or that they need in order to get employed. So KCB is coming to ensure that they give these skills so that they can be able to start and grow their enterprises. Now, KCB, through that Tujiajiri program, has actually created 150,000 jobs, trained 35,000 young people, and incubated over 10,594 youth, and disbursed 26 million shillings of loans to these young people so that they can start their business and be able to do something great for the Republic. Now, KCB says that you not only just get the skill, but will also give you the tools of trade that you need to start your business. Are you into, I know you are into matters to do with food security. If there is a young person who's into agriculture, they will give them the spraying guns to make sure that they go into these farms and spray, give them loans to be able to get their pandas, their shockers, to be able to come till your farm and make sure that they are able to get into the employment sector. And through that, they are saying if you want to talk to them through it, the government should also get into that. Just go to kcb.com/foundation and all this information will be availed to you.
There you go.
Excellent.
Welcome once again, Dr. Menjo, to the conversation this morning.
Thank you.
Karibuni sana.
Asante.
We saw you about a year ago.
Yeah.
And here we are back to have this conversation about, food security, giving us an update in terms of what's happening, because it's a big ticket item for government. Okay. And of course, you being in the executive office of the president, a food security advisor for that, we'll be having that conversation this morning. So thank you for being in the hot seat today. We're going to welcome you to the conversation today with today's proverb. And Siti is going to share that with you, and then you can tell us what you think about that, and we can get into it properly. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Proverbs for the whole of this week are from the Republic of Angola. Okay? Yes, it is a country with a population of, well, not too many people, 37 million. Not too few either. But there it is, capital Luanda. The official language spoken in that country is Portuguese. But the national language, there are four. There's Kibundu, Umbundu, Chokwe, and Kikongo. How many such languages do we have in Kenya? You're all Kenyan, so I'm asking the question. How many national languages do we have in Kenya?
National, there's one.
Two.
3, 5.
It's two.
Two.
Swahili?
And
English.
Yes.
Okay.
A covered mouth will not have flies.
He cleared his throat.
Yeah, simple enough. Proverb. Nakari, what do you think the Angolans were trying to tell us?
They're saying that, ideally flies follow some form of stench.
Yes.
Basically. And sometimes what comes out of our mouths can be stench, and if it's covered, you would not attract those flies, basically. So be careful what you're saying. Thank you.
Exactly. You could attract something. That's for sure. All right. Good to hear your interpretation of that. And even as we get into this food security conversation, there are very many things that come up in that today. But you sit in the office of the president. Food security is one of the big ticket items, like we mentioned before, when we talk about what can be provided. If we give a little bit of background, 2024 saw us come out of 2023, which was a terrible drought year, right? 23 out of the 47 counties were heavily affected by this, and we saw millions of people really on the brink of starvation. We saw that there had to be a buyout of farm animals, cattle. We saw that there were many that died. There was huge loss. We came into 2024, and then there were floods. And again, there was destruction of agricultural, harvest, there was loss again, and affected, whether we like it or not, food security. So can we start off with an update in terms of where Kenya is today with food security, and again looking at what exactly food security means?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Oko. And thank you, City and Dennis, for having me again. Actually, it's 2 years.
It's 2 years
since
now.
the last time I was here. And when I came here that time, you remember I shared our vision, our plan under the better. Remember in our office, we track transformation. That's why it's called bottom-up economic transformation agenda. So we look at three things that has to do with the masses in any field. Masses. The number two, it has to be economic, so it's no longer social, and then it has to be transformative. Because in terms of food security, we're asking ourselves, 60 years after independence, we're still almost saying the same things we said when we were 14 million people. Now we are 52 million people. So we had to come up with methods and ways of ensuring that we don't go back in the same circle every year. So basically on better, we had 5 key pillars, which is agriculture, which is the key pillar. Then we have MSME. Then we have housing. Then we have digital economy. And then we have the health component. Of course, all these have linkages to food security. Kenya being an agricultural country, and 75% of our population relying on agriculture, then it's important that agriculture performs for it too. So our role basically in the Office of the President is to track those transformation agendas. We don't do everything that the ministry does. And to do that, we focused on 3 key areas. We focused on first, making sure we are food secure. We looked at those key value chains that ensures we are food secure. Then number 2, we reduce on imports. Remember when we just came in, we were importing food worth 500 billion, considering the dollar then, because the dollar was what was also making it move that high. Then we were also focusing on value addition, just to make sure that whatever we export has value. We increase the value of what, because as you realize, we export most of our agriculture export raw. And we are getting very low percentage of its actual value. And on food security, we are focusing on those staple foods, just to make sure that our people have food on the table. Remember, we came in when we just came in from a very bad drought, and we also had a lot of issues on food security. We were very food insecure. And because of that, the key staple food was maize. And because of that, you remember the Fourier revolution and all those things that were related to this. So the focus was to do a quick intervention to ensure that people have enough food on their table. And the quick intervention, which was cutting across, was the fertilizer intervention. Because fertilizer cuts across value chains. People thought it was just about maize. But the fertilizer was going to all the key food items, maize, rice, beans, sugar, and many other food, livestock feed, were also relying on this fertilizer. So that key activity was implemented. And because of that fertilizer, I think we can say we are safe on almost 3 food items now. We are safe on maize because in the first year we hit 67 million bags against our requirement of 44 million bags. So you could see we had an excess of about 23 million bags in the first year. Then this year, 2024, because that was 2023. This year, 2024, we're projecting to hit 74 million bags.
2024 ends in 13 days, 14 days.
Yes, it's already, because based on our data now that we have on the ground, we actually, and the acreage planted, we're getting about 7.4 74 million bags. So,
if I may ask,
Yeah.
Dr. Mindra, when we talk about that, these bags have been collected, where are they? Are we talking about NCPB short storage? Where are these bags? Or are we saying that this is what farmers have said they've collected? Or is it in a central place whereby you will say it will be released into the market later? Is it actually somewhere sitting?
It's spread across the 3 areas. Remember, the first store is at the farm. That's the beginning of food security. Farmers stock their own maize. You remember, some of them actually produce for subsistence. Just want to produce to make sure their families are safe the whole year. So that's the first store. Then the second store are in various warehouses, including cereal boards and the like. And then the third one is now in milling institutions. So all this is spread in the 3 areas. What we are sure is we planted 6.7 million acres of maize, and the average production has risen to around 11 bags from original 8 bags, just because of this intervention on fertilizer. And these are so for maize, we were actually worried this year that we were going to have a price failure because of this excess number of bags. But good enough, our region, there's been crop failure in the surrounding countries, and this has helped us somehow stabilize our prices in this country. So that's why the price of maize dropped initially to 3,500, but it has come back to 4,000 per bag, which means there's also price stability for farmers.
I have to ask, when you say this amount for a bag, okay, is it a price that is fixed so that anybody who has planted maize and wishes to sell it knows what they should sell it at? Is it the price at which the government pays for the maize when you want to store it? And is it a price that the farmer considers to be adequate for his labors and for the product that he's selling?
Thank you, Sid. Basically, the price ideally is market driven, ideally, based on supply and demand. But government intervenes occasionally to stabilize that price by buying a certain stock, like this time 1 million bags, just to stabilize the price for those who really can't get it. And the current price of 3,500 set by government is completely within the cost of production. The farmer is making some margin. Remember the fertilizer subsidy program. The price dropped all the way from 7,000 shillings per 50 kilo bag to currently about 2,500. So that drop in fertilizer, and that's normally the biggest cost, has enabled the farmer to start making margins even at 3,500. Remember when they were buying at 7,000, even paying them up to 5,000 was still not breaking even. So now that has come down significantly through that intervention.
You use the word stabilizing. What does that mean exactly?
Stabilizing means the government buys stock, ideally for food security, for stocking, but at the same time it does two things. You stock to make sure that in case we go into a bad time, the government has something to release to the population, to the millers and the like. But at the same time, on this other side, the price they set also regulates the price, basically. Because if left alone, with this big number of maize now that is being produced, sometimes people would end up buying a bag at 2,000 shillings. And that would be unfair to the farmer. So what government does is to fix that kind of a price, buy a certain volume, and that on it. So the government acts as another market for the produce. that way stabilizing the market.
Yet,
That's
Doctor,
sorry, go ahead.
Yet, Daktari, every time the government seems to be setting these prices that they want to, with which they want to buy these maize from the farmer is always complaining in the sense that the input that they put into producing a bag of maize is much more than the offer that the government is giving. Therefore, as we talk about matters to do with food security, the farmer is always willing to sell outside the country so that they get the highest return to the product that they have. Therefore, is it a question of the government is setting and shooting the farmer on the foot?
Yeah, actually, that was the case previously, when, as I said, the fertilizer cost was very, very high. But what happened over time when the price of fertilizer came down and productivity went up, because price is a factor of productivity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if your volumes are low, if you are and getting 5 bags per acre, definitely. Your cost of production would be all the way up to 5,000 or 4,000, and therefore this kind of price would be low. Mm-hmm. But currently, our P&L is showing that the price is about 2,400 shillings. So if you are paying 3,500, is still making. But the point is, with enhanced productivity, definitely the cost of production comes down, because you're using the same cost to produce more bags. And I'll tell you this, we are still the most expensive. Our maize is still the most expensive in the region.
Meaning it's the most expensive to buy?
Yes, because if Tanzania, theirs is lower. Of course, their production system is still different. Uganda is also still lower. Their soil fertility is still very good, so they use very little inputs and still produce. And Kenya, because we've really pushed intensive production for long and structured fertilizer regimes and things like that, we sort of messed our soil ecosystem. Okay. So productivity came down. And that is why there was a direct government also intervention on the type of fertilizer to be used, because our soil had become acidic. Our production was not going up anymore, it was coming down. And with that affected the cost of production. So the effort has been, let's change the type of fertilizer. We're doing a serious soil analysis, sampling for the whole country to now determine the real fertilizer to be used for every region. So that's not also a general one again.
Because I ask at this point, when you talk fertilizer, I'm a layperson.
Yes.
When I hear fertilizer, I just hear fertilizer. So what alternatives do we have really in terms of fertilizer, and which of these varieties would be useful, helpful to our soil and for us as well? I mean, what is available and what is it that we can actually get to ensure that we optimize on what you're saying?
Okay. Thank you, Siti. You remember when we started in 2022, the main fertilizer used was called DAP. It was mainly DAP. Research showed that DAP increases acidity. It's a very fast, with intensive input, you get very fast growth, increase in production, but for a short time. It's a sprinter. And
then the soil
now messes up.
Yes.
Then now is when, after this government came to power, said, let's look at our soil fertility issue. And we brought in NPK 2323. And initially there was a lot of resistance because people are used to DAP.
Yeah.
But that first year, because of that NPK, is when we jumped our production from 36 million bags to 67 million bags, almost doubling. Of course, with the good rains and all the other positive factors that came in. So that was the jump. But then now we're still using NPK, but the government said it's not right to just use NPK. We need to have targeted fertilizer application depending on the soil.
On the soil.
So this year, January, we're going to do now a national soil survey sampling to ensure now we can do now what we call soil health program. The soil health program does not necessarily use fertilizer. It can even mean, actually, from analysis, you might find you don't need fertilizer. Maybe you just need lime. In other areas, maybe you just need organic fertilizer.
Right.
So now is when, and because we are working with a group of young people we call agripreneurs, they've been allocated that area. They'll have a treatment model for each area, where now you'll say, okay, for your area, these were the results of your soil samples, and therefore the recommended treatment for you to grow healthy soil is this. Not necessarily just the fertilizer.
Very interested in what this soil survey will then be able to give in terms of information to now see how you can increase yields. Let's take a break and we'll come back and maybe go into that a little bit more. Dr. Menjo is a food security advisor in the office of the president, and we're having a conversation about food security and its updates. Updating you at this point and asking you the question, what steps have you taken to make sure that you can start to create, grow and manage your wealth? The first thing you need to do is send an email to wealth.kenya@sc.com. The folks at Standard Chartered Bank, for the longest time, and when I say the longest time, 110 years, have targeted experience in helping you do just this in 50 plus unique markets around the world. And they're just an email away. With a few coins that you have, with the grand ideas that you have for the future, where you want to put your money and how you want to go about it, they're in the business of holding your hand and getting you to do that today. Grow, manage, create wealth with Standard Chartered Priority Banking. It's wealth.kenya@sc.com.
I saw David. He was carrying flowers.
Don't tell me you're gonna follow him.
I have no idea where he goes between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. But I found some lip gloss. Pink. And a strand of blonde hair on his scarf.
Remember, men are obsessed with you. They want someone who's fresh, younger, aggressive, more daring.
Your daughter is sleeping with my husband. Shut up. From this day on, I will be the one to decide when, where, and how I'm going to fix this and all of this.
The broken marriage vow.
Show off your best skin with Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion with 5-in-1 complete care. The deeply nourishing formula prevents your skin from drying with precious cocoa butter and deep moisture for smooth and healthy looking skin.
Communiquer, très important. Gouverneur Kibandou Ngidi. Sayombe.
Le grand DJ Mato Simour.
Every week, get ready for a packed edition on the property sector here on The Property Show. This Sunday, we explore properties offering the finest in residential living with guaranteed return on investment. Don't miss this opportunity.
Sometimes people think that prefabs are, a little bit too cheap or not built in the right way, it's not as strong. They are very strong, and two, they have the environmental control.
As we discover how Sunkin, the world's leading off-grid solar energy company, is transforming the energy landscape.
Menjo, who is the Food Security Advisor in the Executive Office of the President. And as we went on to the break, we were talking about this, which I find extremely interesting, when we compare to the region, and in terms of performance agriculturally with produce, food now, Kenya is at the tail end, by your own admission, for different factors. Uganda, better soil, inputs, cheaper, obviously because they don't have to do so much. Tanzania, you said factors. You didn't tell us exactly why that difference is there, but still doing better. Kenya messed up with the soil at some point and now trying to get an idea of what is happening with the soil, if there are acidity levels in certain part of the country. Because if you're doing 64 million bags in 1 year and then 74 million by the end of this year and another give or take 14 days, then we're looking at improved numbers because of fertilizer inputs and things like that. But if you go to the root, no pun intended, of the issue, is that the soil has a problem. So then trying to look at solutions for this, and this soil survey essentially should give you answers about what's happening with the soil. My question then would be, so you find out that the situation is maybe bad, maybe, a lot worse than you imagined. What would be the solutions to get the levels that are acceptable to then be able to have produce whereby the barns are actually full, and that you can guarantee that if there is a geological issue, weather, floods, drought, that Kenya's people are fed and that food sources are secured? What would you do?
Okay. Thank you, Oko. I think basically when we talked about soil health, as I said, is more on a specific area. We split the country basically into close to 20,000 farms. Mm-hmm. And we've put there somebody called an agripreneur, mm-hmm. which ideally would have been an extension person. This is a framework. If you've been seeing the advertisement by the counties, they are hiring agripreneurs. They are locked into an area. Mm-hmm. That area is where we're doing the soil sampling for each of them, of the 20,000, taking close to 77,000 samples. And once we find out what's the status of that soil first, then you come up with a treatment model for each of those areas. The treatment could be, as we said, the different types of fertilizers. Mm-hmm. Now, then you track the soil health status based on that treatment over time to ensure that the soil health is growing or improving, to ensure that whatever is being produced, and again, aligning also that soil to the different type of value chains or crops that are supposed to be produced. That way, even though, our system is basically smallholder, unlike Uganda, in Tanzania, mm-hmm. our land sizes have really gone small.
Right. There's still large tracts of land in Uganda.
In Uganda, yes. Some region of Uganda is still very big, mm-hmm. and they've never gone into all these things we've gone into. We went intensive. We used our 20% of arable land, and which reduced to 17% due to climate change, and now 15% through real estate. We're down to 15, and our population has almost tripled. We were doing this when we were 14 million, now we are 52 million. So you see, reducing arable land, increasing population. So we had to intensify production, and everybody thought fertilizer is the silver bullet for this.
I have to ask this question.
Yes.
Can we reclaim some of this land that we've lost? Or can we increase some of the less arable land? Other people have done it.
Yes.
So I'm not talking about something that has been done.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is a by the way. Because if we're using 20% of our land, you mean there's 80 sitting there?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll come back and tell us if there's a plan that we have to reclaim some of this land that seems to be sitting there.
There's a very clear plan for that. Yeah.
Please continue.
So basically what we were saying, we went into intensive production.
Yes.
Then we again fragmented land to levels that are not economically viable for commercial production. Mm-hmm. So it was more around subsidized. Then for long again, we left the farmer alone. There was nobody working with the farmer. The extension structures collapsed. And therefore, farmer was doing now whatever is coming.
Their own thing.
Their own thing, and not even their own thing. You know, the marketers also came in with their products and said this to the farmer. Nobody was there to protect the farmer. And that is why we are bringing in these 20,000 agripreneurs, allocating them a group of farmers to work with them to enhance productivity. And so the sustainability model is based now on a framework. We've developed a framework to ensure we have a food security. The framework is made up of multi-value chain cooperative, because we are smallholder. So for us to achieve scale, we have to go into cooperatives. And I think I explained that the last time.
Yes.
Then number 2, we're doing aggregation centers. This is just to support markets. Aggregation center is a 2-acre facility in a ward. And basically we are focused on the ward. So when a farmer takes their produce, they ensure it can be bought at a fair price. Okay? And we are linking this to warehouse receipting system. Warehouse receipting system is such that if a farmer delivers their produce to this aggregation center, even if there's no immediate buyer, there's somebody, he'll get a receipt and he can go to the next financial institution and access some of the money or that produce while waiting for the produce to be sold. Then we are setting in now the extension system, which now we are calling it agripreneurs. I think you saw the president launch them in last year.
Yes.
And the whole idea why we are calling them agripreneurs, they are a market system rather than a production system. You know, for long, we just push farmers, produce, and then all of a sudden it's production and then there's no market. But this one, we are linking the market to the production. So this guy is more of an industry person rather than a government person. So then we have a data system, what we are calling KIAMIS, where we have registered 6.45 million farmers already. We know them, we've GPSed them, we know the value chains that they are running in. And then we've set a circle in every ward. And the idea again is to ensure financial access for the farmers, so that even when they deliver their produce, they can still access inputs without necessarily waiting to be paid, because there's a linkage between the circle, the aggregation center, and the agrovets, where they're collecting the inputs. And you know, when they lack inputs is when production also goes down. So basically that's the framework that we've developed. We've been working with the counties. It's taken these 2 years to set up that framework. Some are already in place. I think the agripreneurs are in place. The data system, we now the country with the largest number of registered farmers in Africa. Yeah, GPS, you know, they're up to their location. We've also set SACCOs in 1350 wards already that are ready to run. We are working on aggregation centers.
What are those?
Aggregation centers are market centers within the ward. You see, part of the reason why farmers also struggle, they produce, but they can't access the right market. So you get these funny kind of markets where for potatoes, you have somebody with very big guineas, those funny, or middlemen come in because farmers cannot access what? Market. And middlemen, you know, they have their own other agenda. Sometimes they earn more than anybody in the value chain. So we have those aggregation centers, and the whole idea is to do the linkage, link production with the marketing and also input supply. But with the financing where the SACCO is. So it's a center where you also do good infrastructure, road infrastructure, put water and put electricity. Because we also realized in a ward, we have a lot of our infrastructure that are not working because of lack of either power, 3-phase, or lack of... So you find a lot of dead capital within the ward. So we're bringing them together so that within this area, we have like a value chain on coolers, which currently we're only using about 20% of capacity of what you have, just because sometimes some don't have 3-phase power, some don't have water. Then you have a dryer for like maize. You have all these machines, a chiller for potato, and so on. So then a farmer knows when I go to this place and deliver my produce, it will be bought and bought at a fair price.
When we talk about food security, though, it's all encompassing here, not just the availability of food when there is a tough environmental situation like drought or flooding, but we're also talking about the availability of it even in areas where it is not naturally available, and which is responsibility of government to make sure that there's food. I mean, we know that, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about food security for areas, I mean, what we often say far-flung because we are thinking about Nairobi. And so that is far-flung as compared to the capital, all right? Now, there are folks in this country today, whether there's an environmental issue or not, have an issue accessing food, affects food security. So how then does this mandate touch on those areas even today? We can have 74 million bags in the barn.
Correct.
But there are people who don't access that food.
It's true.
How do we...
Very, very true.
Yeah.
Oko, that's very right. In fact, that was our biggest problem, is a distribution issue because of not knowing what is being produced versus where the consumers are. And this one, we are collaborating with the State Department of Health. You remember the 110,000 community health promoters. You know, they're visiting every homestead once every 3 months. What we've done is developed a tool where they also capture family nutrition, so that we look at what are the consumption in each homestead. This has never been done in this country ever again. So that we know consumption of each value chain and where. So that as the farmers are producing, it's aligned to the consumption. And we know the excesses. So that is also an exercise we are doing this month of February, to just find out who is consuming and where.
This month of February, this month of December.
Next year,
next year. All right.
Next year.
I thought I had
During the month of February.
Okay, I thought I was
during the month of. Sorry about that. So basically, that system will also help us sort out what we call post-harvest loss, because what is happening is that we really didn't know what the farmer was doing. We just knew when he arrives to the market with the produce. And sometimes he comes with a very perishable good. So he comes, he needs to sell today and the market is not there. So in 1 day or 2 days, the produce is spoiled, is lost. But with this system, we have agripreneurs who are managing a given area in their farm, working with the farmers. So they know what's being produced. On this other end, we know the consumption pattern and where, which county, and also the nutrition status. We are linking this to the nutrition report, especially on child nutrition and the like. So what will happen is that actually production will be targeted production based on the consumption patterns, and the excess is what we'll do either for food security, now storage, stocking, while at the same time now thinking, can we export?
So on that, I've got to ask you that I still cannot get the images out of my head a few years ago when there was a milk glut and milk was being poured into farms, right? In this country, it happened.
Correct.
And so when we talk about food security, I'm curious as to what the interventions are currently to ensure that, number one, that wasted doesn't happen in the same country where, again, there are individuals who don't have access to this food. So what mechanisms are we talking about? Dehydration of milk, for example, desiccation of maize, drying of other food items, such as meat, which may be traditional but are vital for survival today. And I think that would be all-encompassing then when it comes to food security and the mechanisms to ensure that food is available all around for everybody at every time.
And Dr. just to buttress what Ndu is asking, there's also the aspect of the fact that the country that we live in is pretty much dependent on rain-fed agriculture. What are the plans in place for us to move towards intentional irrigation-fed agriculture so that year all in we have food ready for Kenyans?
Okay. Thank you. Let me combine the two questions because they followed each other. Basically, when I described food security, that time I said the food must be available in quantity, quality, and accessible. in terms of cost. But more important is knowing what we need versus what we have, because that has also been a big issue, and that has been a data issue. That's why we really focused on registering these 6.4 million farmers and find out what are they doing to know what we have. Then we use what we call per capita consumption of a value chain, depending on the nutritional status, depending on WHO requirements, to calculate what we need.
Yeah.
For example, for us, maize, because our main energy source, we need 0.73 of a bag for per person, per capita. That's per year. Yeah. So we calculate backward and say with 52 million people, what do we need? And because we also know now how many acres are under maize and what is the average productivity, we are able to balance the two. Now, the other question now comes to what you asked earlier about distribution. Yes, we have produced, but we don't know. There's somebody else starving in Wajir, and potatoes or cabbages are rotting in Nyandarua, which is not, when you really do the balancing, as a country we still have scarcity, but it's rotting. So this is why we are setting up this now second survey of finding out where do we really take this. When we produce, where do we take it? And now production is guided by the consumption need. So when you have, so this is basically a data issue, and that is why for these agripreneurs on their phone, they have value chains. Every time they visit a farm, they are updating. This is what the farmer has done. So today, we would know how many acres of potato have been planted today.
Agriculture is a devolved function, is it not?
Yes.
Now, we have a ministry,
yes,
national government, who, according to what we understand, is in charge of policy.
Yes.
Are we saying that we do not know from a policy perspective what each county produces or what each county needs? You will tell me we do know.
Now we know. We didn't know.
We did not know.
Yes.
Now we know.
Yes, now we know.
So, do we produce enough food to feed this country?
On value chains specific, like maize now, I've said is okay. Beans, we are not yet there.
You know, my question, exactly, you're answering my question.
Yes.
You are. Go on.
Yes. Maize, we are okay.
Beans?
Beans, we are not, because we need about 10 million bags.
And right now we have?
We produced 6 million, but I saw a good figure, now we have stock.
Okay, what other foodstuffs do we need?
Okay, rice. Rice, we are completely...
Shortfall is
immense. We need... We need 1 million metric tons.
Milk production and milk products?
Milk, we are deficit. But now, that brings me to the question you asked about that glut. You see, sometimes it's poured and then we say we don't have. We are importing 1 billion liters of milk. But, this rain-fed approach to production is what's causing this. Because the time we're having glut, normally is the time we have short rains and we have some crop residues. The farm have been harvested. And therefore animals access feed and water. And every single cow of even the non-dairy, even the 3 million that we milk, if they add just 2 liters of milk, you just move to 6 million liters. And this added on top of what was existing. And our capacity is like 4 million liters maximum. But you've added 6 million. So all of a sudden, there is no market. Our idea is to take all those cows to produce now at that level of glut. So that our processing capacity is also brought to that same level. So that now we have just enough for ourselves and also for exports.
Okay.
But now we only have a high glut for 2 months. Then after 2 months, we'll go into another 10 months without. And that is how now Uganda milk finds itself here. We start importing. It's because of that seasonality. Now, let me answer the issue of irrigation. I think we've been struggling on the issue of irrigation.
Yes.
We've been relying on rain-fed agriculture for most of our value chains. Yes, we have areas in our country that have enough rains. So you can have and through here, but it's a very small area. So what we are doing is actually to try and do the dams. You see the many dams that we are trying to do is actually to enhance the issue of irrigation. And more so, in the 85% of the country, the assets, the one you said, are not productive. So we're setting up a feedlot because the main economic activity in the assets is livestock. And you know what has been going on. During the long drought, we end up losing 2.5 million animals during the long drought. During the normal drought like this year, you lose about 500,000. Just because of two things. They lack feed and water during that same period. So what we're doing is setting up an area, because where you had a 5,000 acre facility, we're calling a feedlot, fenced, and we're doing a dam inside.
Okay.
And that dam is to do irrigation within that 5,000 in every ward.
To take care of that.
So that we stock enough feed for the animals, but the feed can also be crop residues. So we plant for the people and harvest the crops to residue to be used by the what? By the livestock. And you stock for 3 good years while waiting for the long drought. That is how to save the 2.5 million animals.
2 years is too long a time for you to come and give us an update about what's happening with food security. I think, necessary to have you more often. Dr. Dominic Menjo, who is a food security advisor in the office of the president. Thank you for being here this morning. We'll talk with you again in the future. Asante Sana. An opportunity to remind you, send an email to wealth.kenya@sc.com. Learn how to grow, manage, or grow your wealth with Standard Chartered Priority Banking today.